out of high school today. We're shooting the teaser for House Divided.
Let's roll!
A story about a deaf boy who starts hearing noises in his head. The point of a teaser for an episode of House is to set up the character that's going to be House's main patient, really our A story of the episode. It's the opening sequence. It usually doesn't have our main cast in it. It's the guest cast showing us the symptom that's going to be House's main mystery.
Teasers are always limited to a couple of minutes or 3 minutes at the most, so it's always a challenge to kind of encapsulate everything you want to say about something in that short period of time. So it's always a challenge making it work.
This teaser is going to take about 8 hours of our day to photograph. We've dedicated a short day to it on the weekend so that it could stand alone. Since it doesn't involve Hugh and our main cast, it's the perfect opportunity for us to come as a production, self-contained and small, to this place and be able to do this particular story and give the rest of our cast a break.
Most teasers are shot away from the hospital, and it's always fun going out, although sometimes it's a logistical nightmare because moving the crew and all our equipment and everything is a lot of work. But for me, it's like a breath of fresh air because they're just like little films in themselves, and that makes it great fun and for the cinematographer to do that. So I really enjoy them.
Everybody does seem to breathe and feel a sense of relief to get away once basically a week to shoot something that they don't normally get to do. We do love the hospital. It's a great thing to shoot. There's always a different way to come at it. But in terms of getting off the stage and being on location, there's an energy to the physical space that you can't necessarily create on stage. Having directed a lot of these episodes, I always find that the teaser is really my way into the episode, and it's going to set the tone for the entire episode. And so, as a director, my biggest mystery to solve, like, how are we going to get into the show? What about the teaser will set the tone for the whole episode that follows? We had a immediate challenge with the fact that the kid was deaf, and we were just going to get into a lot of logistical challenges that we don't normally encounter for us as a show, as well as aspects of storytelling that I personally haven't worked with. So from the one standpoint of production, we had to figure out how we were going to communicate. We wanted to use as many deaf actors as possible, both in the stands, as part of the wrestling team, as well as our 2 actors. We had several meetings trying to decide, okay, just the logistics of this teaser, how are we going to let them know that we're rolling? So we've got the ADs waving flags. How are we going to communicate all this information so that we can keep the set as efficient as possible, as we always have had it, and we take for granted so often that we can all hear and communicate. So instantly we as a production were right inside the character's head because we saw the immediate challenges of communication and having to do that. One of the first things we noticed in casting is that there was a real difference between deaf actors who were, in terms of signing, and hearing actors that knew sign. There was, again, a very big distinction in terms of the physicality, in terms of how they use their bodies and their face, and not having that extra sense. There was amazing how much more expressive I found the deaf actors that came into audition. And that was really solidified that we had to find a deaf actor. And we were very fortunate to find Ryan, who plays Seth, because he was a real score for us, and he's a terrific young kid. There's not a lot of young deaf actors. It's just culturally, there is not. To the point where we couldn't find the girl that was going to play his girlfriend. And it was Trishelle that came along out of calls to all the deaf schools in Los Angeles. And we had a great response, and we found this great girl to play Laura. These 2 kids are great. In the case of Claire, the mom, we wanted to get the best actress for the part, not somebody who could sign and act, because we just found that that would limit the pool, and we figured we could teach somebody that was the right actress to sign. So we had to get a very specific teacher, which turned out to be the same woman that does all the deaf signing on Sesame Street. It was very exciting. Celebrity to me. She was able to teach the actress signing over a couple of sessions for the scenes in the script. And on set, we have a translator who's not a teacher. So those are 2 very separate jobs. So we learned that, which we didn't know. I'm used to just being able to go up to somebody and speak directly. This is just that added element of interpretation that goes. But it's been incredibly successful. It just, everything has an extra step added to it. But it's a step worth taking. Rob, you can give me a little more feet.
More feet.
Of him hopping. Just the feet. That was kind of cool. but the movements you don't have to sway as much or move as much. For the show, which is mostly contained in a hospital, we have an exceptional amount of background actors today. We've got probably 100 on each side of the stands, as well as probably another 50 between our wrestling team and our referee and everybody else. So everything is at a bigger scale. It's why we're here on a Saturday, especially because it was the only way to get this many kids out of school. It all starts with the script. Liz and Matt wrote a great deal of subjectivity within the script. So if you look at the passage of the script, we feel like we're in his deaf point of view. We feel like we're with him for these concussive explosions that are going on in his head. So it started on the page, and from the page we looked at the mechanics of wrestling, and I was looking at the physical space that was being used, which was circular, and it was going to be moving from all sides, which immediately justified the circle track, which was going to be tricky because so much of the action would be on the floor. It was important to recess the track down below at a lower level. Now, because this is a real place, we can't dig holes into their floor, so we had to raise the whole set. So even if you see on the mats, the mat is up a few inches so that we could sink the track down. At any angle, if you look, and if you get low enough on the ground, the divots basically disappear, so you're never noticing them. So this allows us to go 360 degrees and not see ourselves and not give away anything, which is why we're all tucked in behind bleachers.
I thought it was a wonderful idea just to have this incredible spinning movement around, two men fighting. I mean, because wrestling really is a gladiatorial sport. I mean, it goes back to sort of ancient Greece and all of that, and it really hasn't changed very much apart from the clothes people wear. So it suited that kind of action, and so the circular track worked in a brilliant way.
A teaser like this, it's like an action sequence. It might as well be a gunfight or a car chase. There's tons of little pieces. I mean, from the track, we've probably done 75% of our shooting today because it's allowed us to move everywhere, shoot everything, and it's also where his point of view is. So if we turn the camera facing out to the crowd, I mean, that's going to work for his point of view. And if we're turned in, we're able to close in, and I'm back at the monitor. I had a zoom control where I could zoom the camera remotely so that I could be spinning around and getting close into his head while he started to go through the pain. So hopefully the idea is that as the agony is starting, that the pain and the noise is represented by his reaction, but also the camera is telling a very specific story.
24 frames. Next letter, please.
Although it seems like we're just going around in circles, every time we go in a circle, we're doing something different with either the frame rate, meaning we're doing slow-mo, we're doing normal speed, we're doing shutter angles, we're doing something different every single time that we've gone around that circle. And it seems like the same thing's happening all day, but in reality, what's going on with the camera is a whole other kind of chemistry.
The lighting design had to be very user-friendly to be able to track 360 degrees around the actual wrestling match without it being a major relight each time. So immediately you're thinking about doing something from overhead. But I wanted to go a step further than that. And rather than build some kind of rig within the gymnasium itself, I thought it would be so great if we could keep all our lighting outside. We rented a 180-foot crane that could carry an awful lot of weight and put multiple-headed lamps, like power lamps, but very powerful. They put out a massive amount of heat. I was actually frightened of melting the roof, but I wasn't going to tell anyone in that. And then we could project light straight down through the lucky-to-be-existing glass skylight. What this did was to kind of center the light on the actual ring and allow it to fall off on the audience, and that's kind of the natural way you expect to see any kind of match, all the lights on the performers in the ring, and then it sort of falls off towards the outer edges, so you're very aware of an audience, but they're not so bright.
It's been really freeing because we can go anywhere and we're using it as though we're actually working with the sun, which is allowing us to go very quickly and get all these pieces.
And also it turned out to be the best possible thing to sort of show muscle and body and human form. It was a really nice way of doing it because when the body moves you see the shadows, and it brought out all the shapes of the biceps and all of that anatomical detail, which was great.
We've also added a layer which we haven't quite gotten to yet, the idea that during the concussive blast in the teaser that we're putting the A and B camera next to each other, almost like your eyeballs if you were to close your eyes and blink from one side where the images shift. So we're creating that effect where we have two cameras next to each other that we can cut between. So there's that slightly off feeling during the explosion. We're having that boom every time. So it's where he's hearing that. So we're going to do that on him just to alter that and help create that feeling that he's going through something very traumatic. And then we'll also see his point of view represented that way.
We also, in some shots, used a very narrow shutter angle, which gives you a very staccato kind of sharpness to the shots, so that when people move, it's almost like rapid fire flash, in a way, if you think about it in terms of movies. So it worked really, really well. And, that and the combination of high speed to give you a different kind of language to intercut shots that were sort of slow-mo moving, and then shots that were, like that. Gave Greg, I think, some really interesting textures to play with in the edit.
Johnson! Miller!
To keep everything safe and physical, we have our stunt coordinator who choreographed the wrestling. In terms of story, we worked out, do we want this aggressive? Do we want this to progress? What do we want out of it? And I try to speak in those terms, and then from there the stunt coordinator puts together the 2 wrestling matches for us. But they're choreographed and like a dance, so that they remain safe, nobody gets hurt, everybody knows, although it looks chaotic and random and improvised, it's all very specific, especially where the second match involves Ryan, who plays Seth, and you need him to be able to do action that would be something the actor can do and pull off. So there's a physicality there that again has to be safe, but also I'm in there so tight there's no way to ever use a stunt double for him. So the stunt aspect of it is deceptive because it doesn't seem like a stunt, but in fact a lot of work went in to make this chaos look spontaneous.
I actually felt we did incredibly well. We did more than 50 setups, which is pretty amazing. And I just felt completely elated that we'd actually managed to pull it off, and everything had worked as we hoped, and the roof hadn't melted, and all those sorts of things. And we had great material in the can, so I was very happy.
Today went great. We got everything we needed. It turned out exactly the way we wanted it to. We feel good that we got the entire teaser that we needed to get. It was awesome.